Hello everyone, welcome back. Today on How to Play Chess at the Oak Park Public Library, we are going to talk about castling. Castling is a very important move in chess. With castling, what you are trying to do is protect the king. It's one of the ways to protect the king in chess. Now, in order to castle, you first need to move the pieces that are between the king and the rook. You can castle on either side of the board, but in order to castle, you must move the pieces that are between the king and the rook. Today, I'm going to castle first king side. So I have a bishop and a knight that are between the rook. So first, I need to move out the bishop and the knight. And once I move out the bishop and the knight, you see that I have a clean path. Now, this is the only time in chess, ever, that the king can move two spaces. The king moves two spaces, 1, 2, and the rook goes right over the king, just like that. Right next to the king, just hops over. One more time. There's clear space between the king and the rook. The king moves two spaces. This is the only time in chess the king moves two spaces. 1, 2, and the rook just hops over the king, right next to the king. Just like that. You see the king is in the corner now. Now the king is more protected here because it's in the corner. It has some pawns protecting it, and it's going to be harder for the opponent to come after the king. If you want to castle on the other side, well, here we just have an extra piece. Now we have the queen. So we got to move the queen out. We got to move the bishop out. We got to move the knight out. And now we're ready to castle. Same rule. King moves twice. Two spaces. 1, 2. The rook hops over the king right next to the king. You can see that it looks a little bit different here. And that's because we have one extra piece on the queen side. So this is a queen side castle. There are certain times in chess when you cannot castle. If you move your king once for any reason, even if you move it back to the original spot, you can no longer castle for the rest of the game. So if I move my king, even if I moved it once and I want to move it back, you can no longer castle for the rest of the game. If you move your king once, you can no longer castle. If you move your rook once, or however many times, you cannot castle for the rest of the game on that side of the board. So if I move this rook, but I didn't move this rook, and I did not move the king, I can still castle on this side. Same thing goes on the other side. If I move this rook, and I did not move this rook, and I did not move the king, then I can castle on this side. The other times when you cannot, sorry about that. The other times when you cannot castle is when you are in check. You're going to cross the line of check, or you're going to castle into check. And what does that all mean? I'll show you. So say, for example, you wanted to castle this way, but there's a rook here. And if you castle right into check. Obviously, you don't want to do that, because then your opponent can come right into you. It's an illegal move. Can't do that. If it's blocked, then you can castle that way. But you cannot castle into check. You also cannot castle out of check. What does that mean? Well, let's say, for example, I said check. Now you're in check. Well, you can't just say, oh, well, and what I'm going to do to get out of check is I'm just going to go ahead and castle. No, you cannot do that either. If you are in check, you've got to take care of the check first before you castle. And this next one is a little bit hard. It's a little bit confusing. It's called crossing the line of check. Or people will say trying to check or castle through check. You cannot castle through check and you cannot cross the line of check. What does that mean? Well, it means you're not in check. And by castling, you're not going to castle into check. But in order for you to castle, you would have to cross the line of check. And you don't want to do that either. Can't do that. That one's a little bit confusing. We'll try that one again. So here you see that the bishop is attacking this square. And in order for the king to castle, the king must move here and here, where you would be crossing the line of check. So what you have to do is stop the check first, and then you would be able to castle, because now the bishop is blocked. Here's another example of crossing the line of check. If I'm here, again, crossing the line of check. It doesn't matter if the rook is being attacked. If you still want to castle like this, you can. It doesn't matter if the rook is being attacked. We're just worried about the king. So the times you cannot castle is if you moved your king once, or you cannot castle on the side in which you moved that rook. You also cannot castle out of check. You cannot castle through check. And you cannot castle into check. Just a quick review. Cannot castle into check. You cannot castle when you cross the line of check. Can't do that. And you cannot castle if you are in check. Well, I hope you all, next time that you're playing chess, though, do get a chance to castle, because it's a very important move. And we're going to talk about the 3 goals of the opening and why castling is part of the 3 goals of the opening in our next video. We thank you so much. Bye.